Geek Tank Radio on 98.1 The Max.
Welcome, everyone. We are the Geek Patrol, and our microphones don't have a stun setting. Today, we're joining you from the dressing room at the Coruscant Opera House. Brandon, that slime pit over there is toxic, so don't put your hand in.
That's not hand cleaner. I thought that was sanitizer.
Okay, I don't know. Weird stuff back here. I'm walking. I'm treading lightly through.
Have you ever heard the tale of Darth Plagueis the Wise?
Oh, yes. Walk away, baby Palpatine.
Absolutely. Anyway, welcome to Geek Tank Radio, everybody. I'm Joe Thorderson here with my friends Brandon Olmstead and Max, our buddy Max over there behind the glass. Alan is absent. He's out doing some studies or something.
He decided to spend the weekend in Nashville trying to be a better broadcaster.
And we're going to jump right into it. Filling Alan's seat, I guess, is our good buddy, long overdue for a visit, Ned Canty, the director of Opera Memphis. Good to have you back in the house.
Surgery in an opera? How wonderfully decadent. And just as I was beginning to lose interest.
Fear is our most primal emotion. I don't like this opera crowd. I feel tough. Are you still scared of clowns?
Okay, thanks, Matt. I would have set that up better if I'd have known you had some good. Anytime you can hear from what's his face,
it's
the
like
hedonism bot.
It's like an independent wrestling program. I didn't know we were getting entrance music.
Yeah. Anyway,
but R.I.P. Crazy Joe Davola. That was Crazy Joe from Seinfeld, right?
Yeah.
R.I.P. That actor just died, didn't he?
Oh, did he?
I think so.
Max likes to do that. He
That's
always
right.
references Pee Wee Herman and things. But hey, Ned, good intro. I mean, you cannot beat hedonism bot. That he is, he's awesome. Hey, Ned, but we're always getting new listeners, and people may go, "Wait a minute! I thought this is a rock station. I thought this is a show about geek stuff." Well, they need to know. Hey, the director of Opera Memphis is one of us.
Oh yeah,
it's always fun having you in, man.
And even yesterday, so many opera singers are geeks. People would be shocked.
Oh yeah,
the show we're doing right now. Yesterday, I was trying to. The nymph Calistro drinks this water that Jupiter has conjured.
Right.
And I was trying to talk about what it should feel like to drink one sip of it. And I was like, you know how in Lord of the Rings they eat the lembas bread and it's supposed to be like one bite? And she's like, oh yeah. And then and Pippin eats 4 of them. Like she immediately knew exactly. And I'm pretty sure that's only extended edition.
Oh yeah.
So like this is high quality geekdom right there.
Well, there you go. That's why we have Ned, because Ned, coming up in a few weeks, we're going to be talking about shortly La Calista, or did I say
Callisto?
It? Callisto. Yeah. I was close. It's a Greek myth. It's an opera coming up March 22nd and 23rd at Playhouse on the Square. And we always love learning. The more you learn about the history of opera, the more this is right in geeking. In fact, a lot of geek genres could learn something from this. Don't
Most
you think?
geek genres have.
Yeah.
With that in mind, though, we do want to take advantage of your musical expertise, and later in the show, we're going to discuss the Joker sequel, which is still coming up. I mean, I know it's not till next year, but we're going to finally start this year seeing.
Well, we've started seeing pictures and everything, so trailer may be imminent because
it should be. Lady Gaga is out there doing stuff. Folie à is that how you say it? Okay, and I know it means something, but how do you go from the gritty, depressing, intense first movie to making a musical sequel and make it work?
Who said that it has to be chipper and happy to be a musical? You've seen Les Mis, right?
No, I get it.
That's so depressing.
No, I got it. So we're going to talk about that. But Max, you wanted to start this off, right? Because we recently celebrated a holiday.
Well, you could say it's also a legend in geekdom.
Okay.
I mean, I would argue that it is.
All right. Well, go ahead.
And now, a legend in geekdom. Sorry, I've been a little off my game today.
Yeah.
But anyways.
Ned, if Max has a fault, it's that he loves to push the buttons for the rejoiners and intro, but whatever.
But in any case, we celebrate the anniversary of Pokemon, which came out back in 1996. And it was created by a man by the name of Satoshi Tajiri, who was born in 1965. And he was quite the lover of insects. He wanted to be an entomologist when he grew up, but that passion was slowly overridden by a passion for video gaming.
Now, that's interesting. I had no idea. Did you know that, Brandon, that he was an insect enthusiast?
I did not know that.
It makes sense now when you see Pokemon.
Yeah. I did know that he is, functioning on the autism spectrum. But
okay.
And that is why we get so many details and
Right.
layout. And now that I'm thinking about it, it makes perfect sense that he wanted to be an entomologist.
Interesting.
Which is pretty interesting. So in 1991, first off, one of his infatuations when it came to arcade games was Space Invaders. And so, he would dissect, well, how can I make a game like this myself? And so in 1991, he collaborated with Nintendo and first came out with a game called Yoshi, and eventually brainstormed a new idea for a game which would eventually become Pokemon. But the weird thing was, it wasn't originally called Pokemon. It was originally called Capsule Monsters or Capumon, but then eventually Pocket Monsters, which is the, in Japanese, Poketo Monster, which was eventually abbreviated to Pokemon.
Interesting. But I thought it was a card game at first.
It wasn't a card game at
Nope.
first. It became a card game.
It became a card game afterwards.
Interesting. So it was like, okay, because we've seen that, in video games. I mean, we've seen where we're going to start watching movies based on video games. I mean, we already are.
We're watching movies that we get to take part of by playing video games. They're cinematic masterpieces.
Ned, did you know any of this about Pokemon? I didn't know about the entomologist connection.
I knew. Well, it's either insects or dinosaurs, right?
Yeah.
Like people are going to geek out at that age and memorize every detail
Yeah.
of something. I mean, it's usually either that or dinosaurs.
And they make them appealing.
I was definitely a dinosaur kid. It kind of hurts my soul to look at books now and find out that most of the dinosaurs I was taught about when growing up, no, they're reclassified, and it's like you find out, well, no, we thought that was a really big lizard, but it turns out that was actually the set of two bones just missing a head. It's like, okay.
Wait, Brandon, you just made. I'm sorry. Getting back to Pokemon, what would Pikachu be based on? That's not an insect, is it? Or
He's an electric mouse.
okay, so he's the one controlling the insects.
And
right?
then Pikachu, his name is actually a pun off of an onomatopoeia in Japanese, which is Pika Pika, which means to like shine brightly.
Well, if you were could you imagine that this would still be going on as strong as it is? I mean, I don't even know what some Pokemon cards are worth,
Like the holographic
legacy-
Charizard.
Yeah, hey,
it's pretty rich.
a friend of mine still has his original Pokemon Red.
Okay.
Really?
Yeah.
Because that was one of the first Pokemon games, Red and Green.
All right. Well, we'd love to, I hope you enjoyed Pokemon Day and live well. I don't know. What do you sign off with that?
Gotta catch them all.
Gotta catch them all. Boom.
You're listening to Geek Tank Radio on 98.1 The Max. It's like listening to wizards yodel in parcel tongue. The Geek Patrol is back.
Ned, that's one of the skills you try to teach your opera performers, right, before going on stage?
That's actually how we know whether someone is meant to be an opera singer. If they can yodel in parcel tongue by the age of 12, then we know they should be an opera singer.
It's kind of like collecting the
It's what separates
younglings.
It's what separates the wizards from the squibs.
That
There
would
you go.
probably be a really good breathing exercise before going out on stage.
Yeah, I
I'm
think
gonna try
so.
it
man.
tomorrow.
Very, very good. Anyway, welcome back to Geek Tank Radio, everybody. I'm Joe Thorderson here with my friends Brandon Olmsted and our buddy Max over there behind the glass. And sitting in for Alan Gilbert this week is our good friend Ned Canty, the director of Opera Memphis, who is, as you can hear, just as big of a nerd as we are. Probably more so, Ned. We were you are into video gaming. I know that you're a big fan, and one day I think we're going to be seeing more actual operas based on video games, right? I thought you even had sort of a choose your own
absolutely.
adventure kind of.
It's not just so there's, video game IP, but then really, I think the holy grail for us right now, especially the geeks in the field, is how do you take what makes video games special in terms of interactivity, in terms of branching narratives? How do you take those things that make it a legitimate, specific art form of its own, and how do you apply those to live theater?
Right, exactly. So, and so that's one of the sensibilities that I like, that you're always thinking outside the box. So here's the thing, Ned. I grew up in Chicago, and going to the opera was the thing. I mean, you didn't even think of going to the opera without putting a suit on. I mean, because I was going to the Chicago Lyric Opera House, and it's a big ordeal. You have all the women in the pearl necklaces and stuff. But we've always liked your approach, because at Memphis Opera, you're really trying to make it, I don't want to say more accessible to the masses, but you say sort of really take it back to what historically opera used to be, right?
In this opera that we're doing, La Calistro, so it was written in 1651,
Ah.
right? It is the oldest opera we've ever done. This is, 20 years after Galileo was brought before the Pope for saying that, the planets don't orbit around the Earth. So
Right.
this is an old piece. And yet the themes of it, what it's about, are incredibly modern. And the way that the story is told is pretty much exactly how we deal with superhero movies, superhero stories right now. If you think about the Greek gods and goddesses, the Roman gods and goddesses in Italy at this time, they told and retold these stories. They had mashups, they had team-ups, and they would just constantly go back to these stories, to these basic myths and tropes. And it fulfilled the same need. It scratched the same itch for that audience as us talking about any superhero movie, as us going to any superhero movie. It was the exact same impact that it would have on an audience.
And you've talked in the past about how back in the day, the street vendor selling whatever things would be at the barbers talking about the opera they saw last night.
Yeah.
And there was nothing highfalutin about it. It was storytelling.
And, it's interesting when people think about opera, a lot of the time what they're thinking about is the suits. They're thinking about the James Bond movie where the villain is, in there and they're all in tuxes because they're ultra rich. That actually has nothing to do with the art form. What
Right.
they're thinking about is the experience of going. And, if you think about the experience of going the way it was 20, 30, 40 years ago, it's just a totally different thing. People were doing it for a different reason.
So without too many spoilers, what can you tell us about La Callisto?
Yeah, it's a mashup.
I didn't know 1651.
Yeah. These are the early days, and really, it was just a way to tell a story. In this case, Callisto was a nymph. Jupiter comes down to Earth after the son of Phoebus Apollo has ridden the chariot of the sun too close to the Earth. He's created deserts. He's created all this damage. Jupiter comes down to Earth with Mercury to heal the Earth, to see what he can do to help. But of course, as soon as he becomes a flesh and blood being instead of a divine celestial being, he is overwhelmed by lust. And he sees this nymph Callisto. He says, I gotta be with her. He tries to go over and seduce her. She says, get out of here. I'm a follower of Diana. I've pledged myself to be a virgin. And so Mercury says, you know what you should do? Disguise yourself as Diana. Turn yourself into Diana and go and seduce her again. He does. It works. Juno, who's, of course, the jealous wife of Jupiter. They use the Roman names in this because it's an Italian opera. I generally tend to think in the Greek names. But she comes down to Earth, and to get her revenge on Callisto, she turns Callisto into a bear. Jupiter feels terrible.
Do we give a
about
spoiler
this.
warning here? Okay.
Hey, it's spoilers as far as Wikipedia.
It's
but
500 years old.
Yeah,
I guess.
and
that's only the middle of the opera.
Okay. Gee. It's funny, Ned, because you're saying all this, and it's like we always think, okay, take your children to the opera and expose them to culture and everything. It's like, well, I don't know, man. I'm not taking my 8-year-old to this
I don't know,
one.
dude. This seems like a Phineas and Ferb cartoon.
This is definitely not an opera for children. It's
Is this
got
an
some very mature-
NC-17?
No, it's. I would say it's at least PG-13.
Wow.
Plus, if you have any questions, call the office, and we're happy to talk you through it.
I didn't know it was going to go this direction.
You really have been inspired by the Harley Quinn cartoon.
That there's a lot of crossover there as well.
You make a good point, though, because, Ned, one of the things you were talking about was the one thing Marvel Comics did, and back in the day, was they basically made they gave the superheroes flaws, and that's what made it interesting. All of them have their flaws. Well, it sounds like, what is Zeus doing not steering his chariot correctly? And he just, was he drinking at the time?
Probably.
It's like, these guys are all messed up. So yeah.
But this is this is why I love this opera. This is why I love some of these myths, is the idea that life can be essentially unfair. You can do nothing wrong and still get caught up in a war between the gods. And, I don't know if Percy Jackson is within the remit of the show, but that's essentially the same thing that they were talking about on that show in these books, is the fact that the gods are incredibly flawed. The gods are worse than humans most of the time. Yeah. They just have all these powers.
Hey, Ned, now also you said there's a promo for this. So Geek Tank listeners have they can get a discounted ticket. So how do they do that?
That's right. So if you go on the website and you use the promo code Geek Tank, you'll get 25% off tickets. And if you want free tickets and you cosplay as a Greek or Roman god, email me at Ned at Opera Memphis. I'll get you in for free.
Nice.
In costume.
That's another thing that's great about Opera Memphis. They encourage cosplay.
Oh, yeah.
And what is the rules about the dress code for Opera Memphis?
No shirt, no shoes, no opera.
Okay.
And that's really it.
Pretty minimal standards. So, well, speaking of minimal standards, you're listening to Geek Tank Radio. We're visiting with our good buddy Ned Canty from Opera Memphis, and we're going to continue the conversation when we come back.
You're listening to Geek Tank Radio on 98.1 The Max. The Geek Patrol is back.
Use your aggressive feelings, boy. Let the hate flow through you.
That's how you were mentored, right, Ned? I mean, you got to channel every source that you have, right? I mean,
Hey, opera's about the most passionate moments you can feel. Love, hate, lust, murder. We got it all, buddy.
Exactly. And welcome back to Geek Tank Radio, everybody. I'm Joe Thorderson here with my friends Brandon Olmstead and our pal Max over there behind the glass, and sitting in for the vacationing Alan Gilbreth. I don't know if he's vacationing, whatever. He's not here. Our good buddy Ned Canty from the director of Opera Memphis. He's talking to us about the new La Calistro performance that's coming up. It's a Greek myth written back in 1651. But off the air, Ned, the debate is hot and heavy about, we were talking earlier about the Star Wars, the Opera House on Coruscant, and I don't know, you challenged me a little bit on that, right?
Well, that's right. So the Opera House is canon, but the operas that were part of the extended universe, and there were two of them, The Brief Reign of Future Wraiths was one of them, and The Agony of Tarkin was the other. And these are mentioned in extended universe properties. So my belief is that they were decanonized, which I think is a crime against art.
I think so, too.
That's just me personally.
Where does Disney get off, Brandon? I mean, Brandon, where do you fall in? If Disney says something's decanonized, what does that do for you?
It doesn't ruin the story for me. I don't care. I grew up on Marvel and DC comics where they changed continuity at will. Well, DC would give you a crisis and Marvel would go, oh, that issue just doesn't matter here.
Right. Do you have something to say, Max?
I was just going to say there's no Disney Pope saying that something isn't canonical or whatever anymore.
That's true. Well, I don't know, Catholic, whatever. Who cares? Hey, I don't want to go down
Fans of
that.
opera and Star Wars care, my friend.
Well, I don't. Okay. Anyway, anyway, hey Ned, we've been talking. This La Callisto sounds. I'm sorry, it sounds pretty raunchy, man.
Oh yeah,
it's adult themes, and I think it's. But that was also part of why people went out. There was just an article today about the return of sex scenes to movies and TV.
Yeah.
So this is adult entertainment. This is about people who have primal needs, primal urges. So again, you're not going to see a ton, but the themes are adult themes. Yeah.
So there's suggestive things in the.
I mean, read your Greek myths. Why do you think I loved Greek myths when I was 12 years old?
Listen to the music that falls into our commercial breaks.
Oh, good point. Well, Ned, I was thinking about something because, we had said one of the reasons that Marvel has been successful, I think maybe they need to revisit this concept because I think they've fallen astray a little bit. But we used to say things like, okay, well, Ant-Man is really a heist movie, or Captain America's Civil War. I mean, not Civil War. Winter Soldier is more of a spy thriller.
It's a spy thriller.
So it's really it starts with one thing, but it's really kind of themed another way. What would you say the theme of La Callisto is? Because is it a rom-com?
It's a dark romantic comedy. So it's a romantic comedy because there's a whole other the biggest subplot is Lynphea, who is a nymph who's sworn to be a virgin and is regretting her decision, and Saturino, who is a little satyr who has just hit puberty. And he overhears her saying that she actually wants to experience physical love, and he tries to hit on her.
Okay.
So a lot of it is the sort of sex farce part of it.
So it's The Graduate with gods.
Yes. And the best part, there's also a whole other from the nerd part of this. There's a whole evil Spock part of this, which is the same singer plays Diana, the actual goddess Diana, goddess of the hunt, is in the show. But then she also plays Jupiter pretending to be Diana.
Right.
So when Juno shows up, she meets Diana, who's actually her husband in disguise. But it's played by the same singer. So this singer has to play all of this bumbling comedy trying to improvise because Jupiter's very good at seducing women, but he's a terrible actor. And so the comedy is, him sort of stumbling, trying to come up with excuses.
The whole evil twin scenario, just boom, right there.
Yeah. Now, we talked about goatees to differentiate, but we didn't go there.
That's interesting because I always wondered what the challenge would be for somebody to play a bad actor. Like doing that well would be tricky, don't
It
you
is.
think?
It involves a lot of craft, a lot of bad hand gestures.
Goes to show you just how great an actor they are.
Yeah.
It sounds really. It's like that. It reminds me of that play, the play that went wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like the more problems it has, the better it. I don't know. Pretty interesting stuff. But Ned, you said our listeners have a discount. They get in. There's lots of ways to get in, either free or discounted tickets. So how do they do that?
So Geek Tank, if you go to our website, operamemphis.org, and buy tickets and use the code Geek Tank, you'll get 25% off on any seat for either performance. And if you cosplay in Greek or Roman dress, then email me at ned@operamemphis.org. And if you come in costume, I will get you in for free.
What other opera house is doing that? I guarantee it wasn't doing that at the Lyric Opera House. I mean, do you guys have like confabs where all the opera directors of the country get together?
So, yeah, there's a conference once a year. And everybody gets together, and we take notes, and we steal from each other, and we drink and geek out about our own things.
So it's your own Mos Eisley, a full-on hive of scum and villainy.
Indeed, it is.
I'm picturing the Senate with their float. So, Ned, where do you? Let's just put your cards on the table. Where do you stand in that crowd? Are you the outcast, or are you pretty typical of an opera director?
So, I don't know how many other directors of opera companies have as many gaming consoles as I do. I will admit to that. I tend to, a lot of the time, I end up hanging out with people in marketing or PR just because... they're maybe a little more into some of this stuff and they like the connections. But
what you're saying is that, well, we all know the concept of the black sheep. They had to come up with a whole new color for you.
Yes. So I am the rainbow sheep. I don't know. Whatever floats your boat.
That in and of itself sounds like it could be an opera. The rainbow sheep.
I bet you there's some directors who maybe they keep their mouth shut, but they steal your good ideas when they go back to their city.
They wish they could be as open about what they want to do as Ned is. But they know that, they have to work around. Yeah.
I will say that the younger, when I started in this job 13 years ago, I was one of the youngest general directors in the country, and that's definitely changed. And so I'm still pretty much on the young side, but, I went from being the outside bomb thrower to being kind of like the funny uncle of a lot of the younger generation, some of whom were my assistant directors, 20 years ago, are now running their own companies. And, they are bringing a lot of youth, and there are, most cities, big cities, have at least one company that's doing cool stuff.
Well, very cool. So if you go to La Calistro, March 22nd through 23rd at Playhouse on the Square, you can meet Ned. He's going to be out in the lobby greeting the guests as they come in. And we're going to continue to visit with Ned here on Geek Tank Radio.
You're listening to Geek Tank Radio on 98.1 The Max. The Geek Patrol is back.
What did you feed Ned? It's like,
hey,
Ned, we only got one more segment. Suck it up.
It's
Get
just
back up to the microphone.
freeze-dried candy, man. It's what I live off of now.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that bad. Anyway, welcome back to Geek Tank Radio, everybody. I'm Joe Thorderson here with my friends Brandon Olmstead and our buddy Max over there behind the glass. And sitting in for the absent Alan Gilbreth is our good buddy Ned Canty, the director of Opera Memphis. If you're just tuning in, he's been telling us all about this really raunchy and inappropriate classic opera written in 1651 that I thought was going to enlighten and ennoble us.
Come on.
All about Greek
Pre-1800s,
myths,
there was nothing written that was classic.
So opera was started by a bunch of guys in Florence, including Galileo's dad, so that they could enjoy stories about sex and violence in a classy way. That's all opera is. Don't let anybody tell you different.
No, I saw Amadeus. I know what he's talking about. So, okay. But, and just to recap, because we're going to move on to some other things. If you want to check out La Callisto, very cool. It's playing March 22nd and 23rd at the Playhouse on the Square. Is it the new or old facility?
It's the new facility.
Oh, cool. Very cool. State of the art. I'm kind of curious about what special effects you might incorporate into this, but these are
some awesome
Greek gods.
Projections. Yeah,
okay.
Some awesome projections.
Okay, so check it out, and as Ned said, you can get discounted tickets if you use the promo code GeekTank, and more importantly, you can get in free if you cosplay. He wants cosplayers, so if you cosplay in, I don't know, Greek attire, something appropriate.
Or if you own a goat and you're willing to come and do some photo ops with folks before the show, also free tickets. Ned at Opera Memphis.
Don't let the goat in there. They make weird sound.
Okay. Just outside in the parking lot.
Okay, and then you leave the goat in the car while you're in the opera. Great move, Ned. Then we have animal cruelty added to this.
Well, if you take him into the opera house, there's going to be a curse levied.
Okay.
Fair point.
You said if you email a picture, did we give the email address of your for cosplayers?
Ned at operamemphis.org.
Okay, and I'm sure you can find that on the website too. So, hey Ned, while we got you here, let's shift gears now. We all, I think, are fans of the Joker movie that came out in is it already 2019?
God, yeah.
Holy smoke! So it's going on it's going to be 6 years between sequels. I really didn't want a sequel. I was perfectly content. It's one of my favorite movies. It's dark. It's thought provoking. It's weird. You liked it, right, Ned?
Oh yeah.
But the sequel, Foley Adieu, it's going to be a musical with Lady Gaga.
Yeah.
How do we make that work? And I guess there's ways to.
Let's just go ahead and be completely transparent about this. We know, we're speculating, but we know that the musical numbers are just going to be in Arthur's head.
That's what I hope. Is that what you're thinking?
That's my assumption. And I mean, look at whether it's Star Trek, the newest Star Trek doing a musical episode, whether it's Buffy. There are a lot of musical episodes, a lot of musical takes in sci-fi and fantasy, and it's usually somebody's forcing it on them, or it's taking place in somebody's head, or it's some sort of alternate reality, or in the Marvels, there's a planet where they only communicate via musical theater. So there's always there's a MacGuffin, there's a gimmick every time. I'm sure it's going to be something like that, where the two of them communicate through musicals, but nobody else hears it.
That's what I'm wanting. Boy, it would be easy to mess this up, though.
Have you ever seen Sucker Punch, Joe?
Yeah, that's an interesting movie, actually.
When they start the performance, all of a sudden you've got a war over here, or you've got espionage over here. I have a feeling that it'll be Dr. Quinzel sitting down with Arthur, and then as that starts, then you're going to get the musical numbers. Yeah.
I could see that derail. I don't know. The thing that was so great about the first one, it was gritty and street level.
But I can see this being just as gritty, but in a different creative light. So,
absolutely.
I mean, I think it's going to do great. I think it's going to be a fun movie while still being a very dark movie. Mm-hmm. I trust Todd Phillips.
Yeah.
Thing about it is, I mean, he did great. He did the first movie was so interesting to me, though. Even we debate it to this day. I don't even know that you could say it was a Joker movie. This Arthur Fleck could just be some nutcase that thinks he's the Joker. Did we definitively say he is?
Well, no, and that's the thing about that makes that movie so great is it is open to your interpretation. It could genuinely be this is his origin of the Joker, or this could genuinely just be this is a guy who was way too influenced by what's going on in his head.
I don't know, man. I always hate when there's a sequel and it doesn't live up to the first one. And I don't know that it should take away from it, but it kind of always does for me. But
I have no problem pretending certain sequels don't exist.
Pirates of the Caribbean.
Wonder Woman 2 is a perfect example.
Sure, but if we didn't have sequels, we would never have Wrath of Khan. We
Halloween
would never have
Ends.
Superman 2. I mean, sometimes it's an opportunity to expand on the original.
That's true, because you could say Wrath of Khan is where they fixed the problems with the first Star Trek motion picture.
The motionless picture? Yeah.
Right.
hey, there was motion. It was just very, very,
very slow.
If you look at their eyes as they're staring for 20 minutes at the control screen. Yeah, that's true. I never heard that, the motionless picture. That's very fitting.
You didn't go to enough Comic-Cons in the 70s and 80s.
I guess so. But I am looking forward to this. But I'm always... I guess I'll give Todd Phillips enough credibility, I guess, because he really nailed it on that first one. Yeah. And I liked it. Hey, Ned, at this point, man, I want my criteria is I just want something that's different. Yeah. I don't want cookie cutter Marvel stuff anymore. I'm sorry.
That's why we're so excited about Late Night with the Devil.
Yeah, have you seen the trailer for that? We gotta get you up to speed. Late Night with the Devil is a film made by one of our guests that was at the convention, Dave Dasmalchian. It looks interesting. We'll show you the trailer off the But it's different. You got to admit,
definitely different.
It's got a different tone. So, hey, let's recap, Ned. How do people? How do people get tickets to La Calistro?
So they go to operamemphis.org and they can buy tickets there. They use Geek Tank in the code as a promo code. They'll get 25% off. If they want to come in costume or bring their goat, they email me, Ned, N-E-D, at operamemphis.org.
You're going to really allow goats at the opera?
Oh, outside the opera.
Okay. Now, you know the history of Wrigley Field. I mean, bringing goats to a public place like that doesn't always end well.
There's no bad press.
Okay, but it's going to be fun. And and we should mention too. Generally, your tickets are pretty affordable anyway.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is a great. What's the age range? What's the youngest person you would bring to this opera realistically?
I would say if you want to research it, if you don't want to research it, nobody under 18.
Okay, I think that's a safe bet. So, well, guys, man, I don't know where the time went. It's gone. We got to get out of here. The show's over. So until next week, we are the Geek Patrol, and I am Joe Thorderson.
I'm Ned Canty.
I'm Maximilian.
And I am Brandon Olmsted, challenging Alan Gilbreth to do a Jupiter Diana split costume for Opera Memphis.
Scary.